Alright, Geordie Prepper here. Welcome to another Prepper News broadcast. Hope you're all being safe in Storm Aisha, and now Storm Jocelyn's approaching. So just get yourself prepped. Make sure that you got the basics. We're going to start today's video by listening to this guy. And basically, I just want to preface this when we're listening to him by saying that these people, obviously this guy's in the military, but you know, these people are basically actors, and you know, they're taken through lessons, they're taught how to talk in front of the camera, and they're taught how to address people and how to get a message across. Now, when I'm watching this, I was very concerned because of his expressions and what he was saying and backtracking. I'm not going to dissect it too much. I mean, I'm not qualified. You know, if you want to watch some proper dissection of the video, then go and watch Canadian Preppers, because he did a very good analysis of this gentleman and his facial expressions and what he was saying. But I just want to preface this by saying, you know, just don't, you know, these people, like I said, you know, they're taught and they're raised how to get a message across. So it could be a message, and mostly the intent of the message is to provoke a response. So this could be a response from everybody who's watching it. They could just want people talking about this, you know, just to distract them from something else. Or it could be, you know, that he's trying to, within the very narrow spectrum that he's allowed, you know, to talk about things, he could be trying to warn people. So we're just going to watch it, and you know, you guys can make your mind up about how seriously you take it. But me personally, from what he was saying and basically just the situation that we're in right now, really was quite concerned when watching it.
You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like...
I mean, he's saying a flashlight, you know, and a radio, that's not going to help you 36 hours of nuclear war. It's like, you know, telling people to duck and cover.
Everything is going to be hunky-dory in the next 20 years. I'm not saying it is going wrong tomorrow, but we have to...
I think there's a chance of it not going wrong tomorrow, but it's going to go wrong pretty soon, I think.
And that's why we have the plans. That's why we are preparing for a conflict with Russia and the terror groups, if it comes to it, if they attack us.
So, yeah, I mean, what he was saying, really quite concerning, but like I said, you know, they might just be saying these things to provoke a response. And, you know, mostly that response, you can see how many times this video has been viewed on Twitter, and it would have been viewed many million more times across other social media. So, you know, just don't take everything that these people say, even though they might be in an authoritative high position in the military, etc. Don't take it as gospel, you know, just prep however as you can, and just be as ready as you can for any sort of predicament that you might find yourself into. You know, we're not just preparing for World War, we're preparing for other things as well. So, having said all that, this Suwalki Gap is being mentioned more and more. It's a quite stretch of rolling fields, forests and lakes on the edge of NATO's easternmost border. And it runs for 60 miles along the border between Poland and Lithuania. If we just go to the map here, you can see this is the Russian part here, where Kaliningrad is. We've got Belarus over here. So the Suwalki Gap is basically this bit here in between. And there is actually a city called Suwalki. There isn't really that much in this area. There is some transport links, of course, but of course this area here of Russia is basically like an island on land. It's cut off from the rest of Russia, and you know, they obviously supply this area from the ocean mostly, but obviously there will be a lot of land crossing with supplies, etc. Now, there's just a lot more talk about this area, and then we have this article on Yahoo saying that you know, this could be the flashpoint. So just keep an eye on this area, guys. You know, there's definitely something going on in that particular area, and you know, we could see something very, very soon develop there. There's still a lot of Red Sea unrest, and they're talking about how it's bad news for the world's food supply. Don't have to be Sherlock to come to that conclusion, but however, you know, the vessels are loaded with foodstuffs, and they are potentially going to come under attack by the Houthis. So these lengthier shipping times where they have to go around Africa, you know, basically if your cargo ship is carrying food, then obviously that's of extremely perishable goods inside. And one of the reasons where it's advantageous to go through the Suez Canal is obviously that you can get the foodstuffs to the European market and Britain a lot quicker. Now that they're having to go around Africa, it takes a lot longer, and they're concerned that the foodstuffs will go bad before they even actually reach their destination. Now they're talking here about farmers, and they're saying that farmers are basically going to have to cut their prices. And, you know, this really, really affects the farming and the agriculture industry, and, you know, that those people aren't supported enough. So, you know, this is just even more of a headache for global shipments of all kinds, really. So one of the first casualties, if not the first casualty of war, is the truth. And this article is just talking about fake news, and they're saying that people who share fake news on social media think that they're helping the world. And I think in a lot of cases, you know, this is true because people do share a lot of things, and even if what's in the article or what they're sharing is false, what's written in the article will be something which they believe if they pass it on to someone else, it'll help them. It's like those emails that go around for years and years, you know, they say, oh, be careful of this, be careful of that. But the email itself is just completely bogus. And you know, these emails always resurface themselves, and they just get totally spread around. I think, you know, people who share articles that they think is true, it's out of a genuine want to basically help people, because they don't want people to fall for things. Like if something in an email or an article, if it says, oh, beware of this scam, but the article and the mail itself is the actual scam, because what they're talking about doesn't exist, right? But people will pass it on because they just don't want other people to fall for it. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I better pass that on, you know, it's going to help someone out. But it's funny how, you know, the biggest distributors of fake news is a lot of the time the mainstream media. They talk about stuff, you know, which just didn't exist or doesn't exist. And it's totally hypocritical of them. You know, these mainstream medias have their fact checkers. And, you know, who fact checks them? You know, and they're the ones that are right, you know. The mainstream media is always right. It's like when they show things on the BBC, it always makes me laugh. They show things on the BBC and they always make a point of saying, this hasn't been independently verified by the BBC. Well, sorry BBC, but you're not the overall presiding authority on news. I'm sorry. But, you know, they've talked about stuff which just doesn't exist and didn't exist, and you know, they said that the reason was for this, and then it turns out to be something completely different. So, like I said, you know, guys, you know, just take everything with a pinch of salt. Don't just go to one article, you know, one news distribution outlet. You know, look for the things that cross those different media outlets. So if a media institution says this, if they name their sources, if they give like more background on things, then usually I would tend to take what they say as being more relevant and fact, rather than a news institute which says, oh, it hasn't been verified. They don't name their sources, they just say, oh, it's just an unnamed source. You know, those, I don't take those seriously, you know, but I just basically go around like half a dozen news outlets and I'll try and look for the same thing that they're talking about. And basically, I'm just looking for the things and the consistencies across all of the outlets. So stay away from fake news, guys. You know, if people are talking about all this climate agenda nonsense, if, you and if they're retweeting what so-called scientists are saying about the environment, just keep your distance away from those sorts of people who are regurgitating that crap. And don't share that type of crap as well. So just even though you might think it's going to help people, just people take it really seriously or take it completely out of context or can get very upset about it, and they won't remember what it is that was distributed. They'll just remember who distributed it. So China's keeping a real close focus on the war in Ukraine for lots of reasons, and it seems that they're disappointed with the performance of the Kinzhal missile. This is the supersonic missiles, well, hypersonic. And they're saying that the Patriot air defense system, which is used by the Ukraine, it was supplied by America and a couple of other countries. And basically, it seems to have intercepted the Kinzhal missiles a lot more than what it should have been possible, given the statistics of and the capabilities, the hyped up capabilities of the Kinzhal missile. So China is really looking at the Ukraine war because obviously they're going to be disappointed because of the amount of information that the United States is getting from Russia's, military systems is really going to hinder China's offensive on Taiwan. Because now the United States and lots of other countries, they have all this data and, they're in an active war. They'll be continuously changing and updating their systems so that they're more capable against hypersonic stuff like Kinzhal's. And obviously China's developing its own hypersonic stuff, so China is probably not very happy because obviously they want to be the dominant force if they do actually do an offensive against Taiwan, but all of this fighting in the Ukraine is basically showing that if they were to do so, then they're going to come up against some issues. And Taiwan does have Patriot systems. Now, this article is quite lengthy, so I'm not going to read all of it, but it's just something that I really suggest that you read. But I will focus just on this one part here. They're saying that, and it's something which I've seen other people talking about, the Ukrainians cannot do it all by themselves with limited and haphazard Western support. I think there's obviously reasons for that. They want to make sure Zelensky's, is basically going to be a good boy and do what he's told. And, they want to see how committed he is to the cause. So they're not going to give him everything all at once because it might completely backfire. Zelensky has often been really quite frustrated by the timescale of the support and the amount of support he's getting. And, it's just be interesting to see when are they going to get serious about supporting Ukraine. Because, when we start to approach that time, that's when Russia's going to get serious in their reaction. Now, like I said in the previous videos, a lot of these conflicts at the minute are basically resource wars. And this article is focusing on water, increasingly being at the center of conflicts from the Ukraine to the Middle East. Really quite amazing how just this one resource has caused so much conflict. They're saying that there's some 344 instances of water-related conflicts worldwide during 2022 and the first half of 2023. Particular of concern is attacks on civilian water infrastructure are on the rise. So it seems that they're spiting, the population. In these conflicts, like I said, the people who always end up being hurt the most is the civilians, and we're seeing more and more the attacks on infrastructure, and the sole purpose of it is just basically to cause misery on the population. If you can get the population so demoralized, then, they'll turn on their own. And they'll say, look, just end it in any way you can, just give them what they want. EU foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels. Informal exchanges are planned with ministers and other representatives. including Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. They must start talking about peace and a two-state solution in Gaza. I think they're obviously going to be talking about Ukraine as well. So yeah, just a lot of meetings, a lot of talk, a lot of drills, everything's happening. And like I said, drills happening. They're talking about Steadfast Defender 2024. They're saying it's a defense exercise and does not intend to have any impact on Russia's war in Ukraine. But like I said earlier, keep an eye on the Suwalki gap, guys, because something's going to happen there. I'm pretty sure about that. There's a lot of manpower, it's a lot of logistics all congregating for this. And it could genuinely just be an exercise, but you know, that's how a lot of things start. Just by under the cover of an exercise. So there's rising tensions on the African continent as well. There was a deal to grant access to Somaliland for Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is landlocked, and Somaliland, which is a disputed area, where there was a deal where they could get access to it. And that would obviously be good for Ethiopia, because it gives them access to the sea, so they can use it for trade, etc. Obviously, I think Somalia is basically reasserting its dominance and its claim to that area. So they're saying that basically the agreement doesn't exist. You're not going to get access to the sea through Somaliland. And then Ethiopia is obviously extremely miffed about that. Increasing tensions on, as if there wasn't enough tensions throughout the world. You know, this is just another area where things can kick off. So after some cross-border tensions and some missile firing, tit-for-tat strikes on each other, it seems that Iran and Pakistan are rebuilding diplomatic ties. The announcement signals efforts to rebuild the ties between the two. There was basically just tit-for-tat firing of missiles across each other's borders at different targets, and Iran said it was firing at terrorist groups within Pakistan. It did just seem to spring out of nowhere, and it was quite intense for a little while. But there seemed to be talking, so potentially one area where there could have been a big conflict. We can breathe a sigh of relief. It seems to have passed. So lastly, in Russia, there's anti-Kremlin protests. Resentment in some parts of the country towards the government has been building since the full-scale invasion of the Ukraine and the mobilization of men into the army. People are protesting and not happy in the Ukraine either, so this war thing is very polarizing. It's brings out the worst in a lot of areas. That's the end of today's Prepper News. Thanks very much for watching. Be safe, be prepared, and I'll see you in the next broadcast. This has been Geordie Prepper, signing out.